I am super excited to have my guest today, Scott Leshin. Scott is the president and CEO of SJ Health Insurance Advocates. Scott founded SJ after discovering firsthand how broken the health insurance industry is, and while trying to seek reimbursement for his son, Sam, who has cerebral palsy. Scott received his bachelor's degree from Syracuse University and a master's degree from NYU School of Business. Prior to founding SJ, Scott worked on Wall Street for both Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs. Personally and professionally, Scott has made it his goal to help as many patients and providers as possible faced with similar needs and difficulties. And Scott prides himself on managing a company comprised of competent, compassionate individuals who believe in the same. Scott, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's get right into it. Okay, so what is the one thing in our industry that upsets you or drives you crazy?
One thing that upsets me or drives me crazy as it relates to what I do is, unfortunately, let me start again. The accessibility for mental health and substance abuse treatment is first and foremost. That it's very challenging for families to access care. It's financially burdensome, and unfortunately, most people just can't afford to access the care they desperately need. That's my mission. That's why I got into this, and that's what frustrates me the most, and I try to solve that.
Okay, tell us about what's happening in your industry. I know when we last talked, you were upset about the different people in your industry, different companies doing different things. So talk to us about that.
Sure. Unfortunately, as in any industry, there are going to be some bad actors, and third-party billing companies have got lumped into a group of those bad actors. Yet there's plenty of billing companies that operate ethically, professionally, with the best interest of the patient and facility owners in mind. And my hope is that there could become I'll almost say like an ethics panel or some sort of, trade group that can represent these billing companies to make sure everybody's doing the right thing, run any issues by some sort of consortium of experts, and make sure that as a group we all operate professionally and ethically so that we can get our patients the care that they need and not have to worry about running into any issues.
Okay, so just to clarify, you guys tell us what kind of billing you do specifically so our listener is clear.
So my organization specifically focuses on behavioral health. So we work with facilities that manage care for both those suffering from substance abuse as well as mental health, or sometimes comorbid. My firm does everything from verification of benefits to claim adjudication, utilization management, and of course, customer service.
Okay, so you're finding that in this detox world, because I know in the regular medical billing space, we all try to be above board, but I think the issue that you're finding is probably a little bit more prevalent in the detox space. So that's interesting. Talk to us about the concept of offshoring. What's your take on it? What are your feelings about it?
Well, I think any business owner always struggles with costs and how to maintain a certain level of service, yet keeping costs in line to make sure that the business can succeed. We've partnered with you, 4D, and we've been your partner for many years now, and thankfully that's worked, and we find that it is both cost efficient. We're able to actually exceed the service commitment that we have with our clients, in that I can build a team, customize a team that you've offered to us to fulfill our clients' service level expectations, again, in a cost that makes sense for the business overall, and to keep costs down for our clients.
Great. Okay, so tell us now, what is something that keeps you up at night? Like, what worries you?
Everything. What keeps me up at night? Well, look, obviously as a business owner, I'm responsible not only to our clients, but I'm also responsible to 40 employees here in the U.S. And I also look at it, even though our relationship, your employees don't work for me technically, they work with me, but I also want to make sure that there's a thriving business that can help everybody. So what keeps me up at night is just making sure that the business is successful, making sure that we're doing everything properly. That I'm not worried about because that's mandated by me. So I don't worry about somebody here doing something inappropriate. But as any business owner, it's just where's tomorrow's business going to come from, and making sure that our clients are happy. And when I do get an email of somebody who's not happy with something, that certainly keeps me up at night.
Okay. Yes. You're always trying to please everybody for sure.
Trying.
Uh, what excites you about the future? Let's talk about the future.
Well, the way I look at it is this business, the behavioral health business is growing. It's becoming, as you can see just on TV, more and more people are talking about those suffering from behavioral health illness, mental health, as well as substance abuse. It's no longer a stigma. You see commercials all day, every day. So I certainly think this is going to be a growing field. I think that the regulations are there to help protect this population. I certainly think there needs to be more enforcement of these regulations because, again, the regulations are there. So I think you're only going to see that strengthen, see those regulations strengthen, see access strengthened. My hope is that the insurance companies will truly consider this a part of their offering, just like they have to offer coverage for medical, and not as much of a fight as it is and has been for quite a long time. Um, but I only see the pendulum swinging in accessing care, getting easier than getting harder.
Okay. Do you see any outside money coming in, VC money?
Yes.
I know you're in the finance world. What do you think that's gonna?
Well, anytime that there's a growing industry, you're certainly always going to have people that are looking to invest in a growing industry. That's just the nature of business. Um, I have not seen anything bad come of that. I think, the goal here is for these companies to come in, help streamline process and operations, drive costs down. Thus, they could hopefully that'll trickle down to their clients, and clients meaning their patients that can access care and at a more affordable cost. Um, I think that one thing that we all have to just be careful of is the profit motive. I mean, the reason for this industry to exist is to help people. Certainly, nothing wrong with people making a living, but we always have to keep the patient's care at the forefront.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about younger Scott. Take us back a little bit because we know successful business owner Scott, but I'm curious about your journey. So tell us where you're from and
Sure. So, how far back do we want to go?
well, tell us where you're from first of all, but talk to me about, I really like the story about when you left Goldman. So tell us
Sure.
about that. First, tell us where you're
Right.
from.
Okay. So, from Brooklyn, New York, live in New Jersey. I've been in New Jersey pretty much all my life. I got into this industry, as you mentioned at the beginning. My professional career was always in finance, and I did about 16 years on Wall Street, and then my son Sam suffered a stroke in utero. So SJ, my company initials is Sam and Judah, my two boys. Sam suffered a stroke in utero when my wife was 6 months pregnant with him, and us not knowing at that time that something was definitively going to be wrong when he was born, we spent about 4.5 months in various NICUs throughout New York City and New Jersey. And here I am, 27 years old, 30 years old, having to learn how to navigate health insurance to get my son what he needs. So my son unfortunately requires 24-hour nursing. He's tube fed, has a seizure disorder, so there's a lot of complications there. Just like everybody, I've never read the 200-300-page book that I get once a year, so I really didn't know what was offered and available, but I had to learn it. Fortunately, at the time, I was working for Goldman Sachs, who was very, very good to me and my family, and helped me navigate and put together a plan for what Goldman could offer to my son. So I'm very thankful, and I'll always be thankful to Goldman Sachs for really being supportive of my son and my family. So after my son was born and going through the few years of just keeping him healthy, and then meeting with some insurance success for my son, I started helping out other families with special needs children, helping them understand what their plans are, how to get physical therapy, how to get wheelchairs, how to get nurses, and sharing letters of medical necessity. And I really enjoyed that. And fast forward, after a year or two of doing that, I decided to start an advocacy company for special needs children. And I was doing that nights and weekends while still working at my prior employer, uh, and that business started to really take off. So Goldman and I parted ways in April of 2013. I My original mission was for children with special needs. About 6 months into that journey, I was introduced to the world of behavioral health through a family friend who had a daughter who was suffering from a lot of mental health illness. He asked me to step in, help him fight insurance. I did. The appeals that I wrote were successful. Then the facilities asked if they can share my information with others, and I said yes. And the next day, the phone started ringing, and my first hire was a clinician, and then a friend of mine to help manage the claims process and the traffic. So there was three of us in one room, in a one-room office, and then it just blew up. So now we're working with over 200 programs across the U.S. and able to help a lot. We submit about $750 million in claims annually, and really been able to ease that financial burden for families.
That's wonderful. Talk to me what it felt like to leave that secure Goldman Sachs job to go out on your own. How was that moment there?
This is like a therapy session. How did it feel? I was scared to death. How did it feel? I knew what I knew what I had to make each month in order to live. And yeah, I was scared. I was absolutely very scared, but I felt that there was something here, and I really enjoyed it. And as every business book says, if you find something that you love, and you'll make a living off of it. So I've been blessed in that regards, because I do love having my own business. I do love the work that we do. But yeah, I'm not going to lie. Just like you go out there and start your own business. It's you. It's on you, and there's no one telling you what time to be at work. So this is a 24/7. It still is a 24/7 job, but back then it was really grinding. And fortunately, my wife was very supportive and continues to be very supportive of what I have to do in order to continue to build this business and be successful. So yeah, I was lucky to have that support, but obviously it was scary. It still is scary. You can never sit back when you own your own business, and feel comfortable. So.
Absolutely. What I find different about your story is that you right away went to sales and you were just like constantly selling, where I feel like some billing company owners will get like one or two clients and kind of be comfortable. But I think that the way you sell and the way you're like pushing yourself to sell, even at the very beginning, I think is different than most, billing company owners that start a company and are billers themselves, maybe. So I like the angle that you come at it, with your sales background. So, okay.
And that was actually a lesson from a former colleague of mine at Goldman, who also started their own business, different than what I do. But one thing he said, which always stuck with me, is that just after you get your first client, still make sure that a few hours every day you're out there looking and making the next deal, so that once that specific assignment is done, you're now not trying to find the next one. You already have something lined up. So I do remember that morning coming into the office and saying, I have to spend 4 hours every day just on the phone, cold calling places. And that's what I did.
Are you still doing that? Like, how many hours do you spend now on sales?
No, nowhere near that. Fortunately, a lot of the work a lot of the business that we've obtained organically. So, this is as big as this industry is, everybody knows everybody. So, I might work with the facility, then somebody there starts their own, and then they refer back to us. Look, you always have to be out there selling, but it's a little different now as you become established. Here I am, 9 years later, 8 years later. It definitely is different. Thankfully, the phones ring and call in. But, look, we still have to be out there at the conferences. We still have to be, networking through various channels, again, just to be out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if you can go back in time to the first day of your company and talk to yourself, what kind of advice would you give yourself?
Um, I think at the very beginning, I was very much, while I was still selling, I was still very much in the weeds, and you really have to build a business that you can work. And this is going to be very cliche, but you have to build a business that you can work on versus work in. And I still struggle with working in the business and not on the business. And I think every entrepreneur struggles with it, which is why it is a cliche. You read any business book, they always say a good owner works on the business, not in the business. But it's hard when it's your baby and you built it to start to pull yourself away from the day-to-day, because you watch every single email and punctuation mark and every single number and data point that goes out the door. But you got to build a team and hire a team that you have trust in. Now, I have a lot of trust, obviously, in my employees. But I would say design the business at the beginning that you can work on versus in. And, so that when you get to 9 years later, you're not still struggling with that, which I still am,
Love it. I love that. So, okay, tell us about what does Scott like to do for fun? What do you do when you're not grinding in the office?
Right. Well, I have 2 boys and a wife, so I love spending time with them. And for a hobby, I'm a hockey player, so I spend about 3 nights a week playing hockey. That's where I can really shut
Hockey.
down.
Love it. You've on like 4 teams, a bunch of teams, right?
Yeah.
That's
But
awesome.
I love it.
That's great. Okay, so where can people find you? I know you're not a big social media person, but
Sure. I am working on that. But I can be found on the web at sjhealthinsurance.com. I do have a Facebook page. I do have a LinkedIn page, although I still need to spruce that up. But you can find me on the web at www.sjhia.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
If you learned something today or laughed, tell someone about this podcast. And thanks again, Scott. That's it, everybody. We'll see you next time at our
Thank you.
next conversation.